Hello, everybody. Good evening. I want to welcome you to this fifth session of these webinars about the value of sustainable design in organizations that we have organized together, EINA, Design School in Barcelona, together with Barcelona Global, EADA Business School, and McKinsey and Company. To design is to imagine the future. Not only the future of objects or products or services, but most importantly now, it is how humans interact and solve the challenges we face as societies. But besides and beyond this analytical diagnosis of those challenges, which is done traditionally by the sciences and the social sciences in particular, design faces the transformation of reality, slowly and painstakingly, and change precisely those existing conditions to alter the normal course of events. Design then is not about objects, products, and services anymore, but about politics, diagnosis, technology, and entrepreneurship, and ultimately about change. Therefore, to confront global changes, organizations must be pushed to think collectively, beyond the limits of their businesses, beyond the limits of their usual agendas, and redefine relationships and collaboration schemes to modify unsustainable conditions and challenges that threaten their very existence. In tonight's webinar, we will talk about collaboration, but about collaboration as a way to figure out different and better futures for our communities and organizations. And we will also talk and take a look at the flip side of the future. Are our cities really prepared? Can our cities, societies, and organizations survive in the near future in the view of the challenges that we face? That is, are these cities sustainable at the large temporal scale? And what can we do to alter the otherwise normal course of events to become sustainable? Tonight I'm here with Per Moller, who we will introduce in a minute, and also with Maria Buhigas and Rafael Balanzó, and also with Maite Barrera, who is a member of the Executive Committee of Barcelona Global, and also President and founder of Blue Cap. My name is Pau de Solá-Morales, and I'm the director of the EINA, the Design School, Design and Art School in Barcelona, one of the co-organizers of the event. If you want to place any question for our guests tonight, I would like you to do it in the questions and answer button that you have on your screen at the bottom, not on the chat, because otherwise we will not be able to answer them. You can make questions and answers for everybody or direct them to a particular person if you want. So now I give the floor to Maite Barrera to introduce Per Moller. So Maite, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Pau. Thank you to everybody that today is here with us, and thanks to EINA also and all the sponsors. So it's a pleasure and an honor to have with us Per Moller. His bio is very long. I'm gonna try to summarize. He's an experienced facilitator with a demonstrated history of working and success to support and develop industrial and urban symbiosis towards a circular economy. Per Moller is senior symbiosis developer at the Secretariat of the world-leading Kalundborg Symbiosis. And I have to recognize that I had to go deep to symbiosis and to understand what was the concept, because then it's very easy to, when you learn a bit and you read a bit, it's very easy to understand. But the symbiosis, the industrial symbiosis, it's a very old concept that Kalundborg established in 1972, so a long time ago. And that has been the basis for the circular approach to production, to the basis to a circular economy. No? So Kalundborg Symbiosis is the world's first industrial symbiosis. It's a partnership of 12 companies, public and private companies in Kalundborg, And the main principle is that the residue from one company becomes a resource at another company, benefiting both the environment and the economy. Having a local partnership means that they can share and reduce the resources. And in that way, they save money, and at the same time, they minimize waste. So Symbiosis then, what means that they are able to create growth, local growth, but also to support the green transition. No? Per Moller is co-founder and facilitator of national and Nordic Baltic networks within urban and industrial symbiosis, and he's very active in innovation and advisory boards. Furthermore, he's dedicated towards the development of emerging and maturing hubs through a systemic approach where circular potentials can be realized. Well, Per, thank you very much for being here today with us. You are our inspiring story today. So let's see if we can learn a bit more how to develop new interactions between companies and how to reshape markets, to reshape industries towards sustainability. Thank you very much. Your turn.
Yes, and thank you for having me. I'm very delighted to be here. And my colleague Tue was actually invited in as the first thing, but now I have taken over. He has other things to do. But glad to be here. I will share my screen and then hope everything works fine.
Fine.
So I will, for the next 10 minutes, I will just give you a short introduction to what we do, who we are, and why we're doing what we're doing. A nice introduction so I can save a few minutes, but I probably will repeat some of the things that Maite just presented. But I am here today as a facilitator, as a project manager, as an inspirator, and also I hope a creative mind to actually try and develop not only technologies and the combination of technologies, but also how we work together. And that is really the success story behind the Kalundborg Symbiosis. So what we have done, and what my previous successful colleagues have done, I mean, they have been able to establish this public-private partnership in a small city, 100 kilometers west of Copenhagen. So a very small city, 17,000 inhabitants, and still we have been able to attract and expand with the most sustainable industries in the world. We actually just had Christian Hansen move to Kalundborg. They will start the production next year. First thing they did was sign in. They are #1 as the most sustainable company. So this is also a matter of branding. It's a matter of understanding that if this is the way we should produce, and it is, looking into green transition and sustainable production, we need to do it together. And of course, if people are doing it already, it's more attractive for similar companies with a similar mindset to actually move towards and work together. So it's really also about value proposition and attracting investments, creating jobs, apart from, of course, supporting the green transition. So what you see here is Kalundborg, a small city, 17,000 inhabitants, but a lot of industry, but it's not an eco park. It's not designed from the start as a green field. This is something that grew organically over time. It's a mindset that has developed. It's something that we have become aware of, and it's something now we try to work systemically around. But the key here is really working in partnership, public-private, showing leadership, creating business together, doing it sustainable, and along with that, linking innovation. Then I was trying to make the slides move. Yes. So this concept has just been nicely just presented by Maite in brief. So this is really what Symbiosis is about. So companies of public-private working together, trying to make most of the what we formerly knew as waste streams, but we call it secondary resource streams. This creates resilience, because then we will keep the resources locally in the loop. As you can see, a resource can go from one company to another, or it could go to multiple companies, and that same company could receive other resource streams from other companies. So it's really building up an ecosystem where you need to look into design, you need to look into technologies that needs to be adapted or linked to this handling or upcycling of resources into new types of products and new ways of developing business. So all this is actually about sharing not only resources, but sharing information, capacities. It's based on trust. So it's really about long-term relationships. Some cultures find it easier. Others have a hard time actually understanding it, but all can learn this. And it's something not new, it's old, but we just need to rediscover it. So this is how it looks from above, 12 companies, public-private. I'm not going to go into detail, but what we have here also is wind turbines, solar panels, 2 biogas plants. We are recovering waste heat from treated wastewater, and we are using surface water also as a supplement to groundwater for local supplies. And the biogas produced in this area, part of it from one of the plants is actually being upgraded to biomethane, and the CO2 is now to be used, tested in Power to X also. A lot of activities, and what we do as facilitators, what we do at the Secretariat in this private association where I am associated, is that we ensure we facilitate that these companies are interrupted, we interfere and make sure that they also are reminded that keep working on in partnerships, keep working on common green business model is of great value. This we ensure by actually having regular meetings over the year. We have an innovation board, advisory board. We invite speakers and university professors in technology providers to actually present new ideas, and in collaboration we actually try to realize the potentials that are identified into new business models. So this is really a way to work together, and it's the CEOs of the companies that meet regularly. So we have a decision power there. So the mission for us and for this private association is to create sustainable development through partnership leadership. So it's really the leadership that is important here. And our approach towards sustainability is very important, long-term responsible utilization. So it's long-term dedication, long-term contracts that we sign in on based on these secondary resources. And it has to be in balance between economy, environmental, and societal considerations. So this triple bottom line. I'm not going to go into detail, just say that this is an old lady. And when we talk about circular economy, it's not going to be old, because this lady suddenly has a long life in front of her. So now she's actually a young lady. So a lot of potential and a lot of new ideas. And then it also makes it much more exciting to work with her. But just for you to understand that we have a lot of learnings here. First initial idea was in 61, because we were in need of water. But the real first example, private, was, as you said, Maite, 1972. With the flare gas from the nearby refinery, using that as an energy source, and so on and so forth. And we also have introduced test and demonstration, green energy, co-creation, innovation steps. But please note here that it wasn't until 1989. So basically, what is it? 17 years after we had the first private business model realized, that students came with a background in biology and understood that this is symbiosis, so coexisting, mutual benefit, but it's within industry, public-private organizations. And from there on it took off, and now we have reorganized, and now we are an association with a lot of initiatives, a lot of drive, a lot of innovation, and mega projects coming up soon. So it's really is taking off. This is how it looks. This is just showing you in 3 categories what we are sharing, and just please note that some of these lines are going away from this infrastructure. So we are actually sharing some of these waste streams or products from this to the local environment, and even regionally now. Usually we said proximity is important, it is still, but we are looking into projects now where we can actually move these circular resources much further away. And that also creates resilience in our area, because then we can also take back from other areas. So this is growing circularity into something that is much more robust. And of course, understand that these lines also go in one direction. This is not true, because it's bilateral, going both ways, and it is business agreements doing it bilaterally. So we as a facilitator do not intervene with this. We leave them do their business, but we try to inspire them and match them up against new ideas and new technologies. So does this give sense? Does this create value? Well, as you gain trust and as you gain results and good results, you get closer to the companies, and then you're capable of actually gaining data. And data is so important to understand what is going on and how we can move. And through this, we could actually do a life cycle assessment, and we came up with the result that yearly in 2019 data, we save yearly between these 12 companies, where one is the municipality, so that doesn't really count in that sense, 635,000 tons a year. And we have a socioeconomic gain of $16.5 million a year and $28 million for the businesses themselves. So that's quite a value. But on top of that, we also have a lot of investments. We have a lot of new job creation, and we have a lot of development of infrastructure on new harbor site, because they are doing well. And also the customers are demanding products now that has a history that is circular. So all this is really creating resilience, is creating optimism, it's creating common efforts, it's creating a new initiative. So this is really a win-win. My last slide here is just to point into the fact that this is not something that is just in Kalundborg, and it's not only in Denmark. As you can see on the right, we have just launched a national network, but it's all over. We just need to understand that we are doing some of the same things, and it's not new, it's old, but we need to rediscover. We need to share best practices, and we need to understand all the capacities that are around the world. So this is where we are really trying to build capacity, also to learn, because we definitely have much to learn, even though we are an old partnership. So we are moving out, and we are working in a Nordic Baltics network, and we are part of Spire in EU to try and also push towards the EU agenda, and are actually defined as the flagship of industrial symbiosis in a global context, even though there are many good examples out there. But the baby's name was given first in Kalundborg, but there's so many good examples. So we are really eager to do more out there, and invite everybody who finds an interest to this, or are already doing some of the same things, to contact us and join us on this very important journey that we need to go through successfully. So I'm just going to end here, 1 minute over, but saying that we have so many technologies, we have so much know-how, we have so many systems, but this is nothing worth if we do not have the people that understands this, and that understands to work together to actually create and release the full potential of this. So thanks from here.
Thank you very much, Per. I was checking the Q&A. There are no questions from the audience. So, well, you were talking about the network of Symbiosis in other cities, but I would like to know about next steps. You know, these cities are really acting like Kalundborg, or it just connections. You have translate the model already to the full model to other cities. And next steps, what's your road to
a next step that is actually just about to be realized, we hope, is actually a collaboration with Washington State in the US. They have requested our collaboration. They have been here for many years, 3, 4, 5 years visit with politicians, Republicans and Democrats, and they all agreed that this is the way to go. So now we're actually trying to launch a collaboration on that. So that's quite interesting to actually move that to the States, especially looking into the climate agenda and transition we need to go through. So that's quite interesting. I'm going to Spain in a little more than 10 days to Murcia, where we have a EU project where we look into bio-waste as a resource for insect production, but also for unicellular protein, with different technologies, trying to include also the citizens and learn them how to actually collect and arrange the collection of bio-waste. to create value. And then we have the very interesting mature Nordic partners, Paper Province, Eide Cluster, Digipolis, and Iceland Ocean Cluster, who in our network and in a project activity that is financed by Nordic Innovation, where we try to actually take the learnings and experiences from each country in the Nordics and pull it into a more like a Nordic generic model that we hope also we can share with other European partners. And we have done that in the past, but more like a systemic approach where we want to not only share, but also try to build new capacities. And we do that best together with people that, of course, have some kind of capacity, but we can lift that ambition and that capacity to new levels if we share, and that's what we try to do. So that's definitely our aim to do that. And of course, we have ambitions also to develop our own symbiosis with new technologies, looking into the more difficult ways of exploring resources, because now we did the easy parts. We already looking into the more difficult, so where things are mixed, like also in design textile, where you have different fabrics mixed in. You need to remove the buttons or the zipper or whatever, right, to reuse. I mean, there's so many complex things. Also, if you have water where you have something in solution. And at the end of the day, it also needs to make sense economically, of course, on top of all the environmental and social economic aspects. So many things out there to do, and we're happy, and we really look forward to collaboration. So please reach out to us.
Okay. Maite, your microphone.
Now that I was checking and there are no questions from the audience. I don't know if any of the panelists wants to ask something. Perhaps at the end, with the mix of of all the panelists that we have today, we can mix the questions and the answers.
But I think also we need to allow time for the other panelists. So I think that's fine with me. Okay. That's totally fine. So
Pau, your turn.
So thank you, Per, for your very interesting presentation. Thank you, Maite, as well. Yeah, let me go for the second panel, which is actually a discussion or a debate between our next two guests, and they are Rafael de Balanzó and Maria Buhigas, as I said before. And let me introduce them very briefly. Rafael de Balanzó he's an architect, urban designer, and he has a PhD in sustainability from the Universitat Politècnica de Catalunya. Right now, he's the adjunct professor at the City University of New York and also professor at EINA School of Design. He is the founder of the Urban Resilience Thinking Design Studio, and he has received awards from the Belgian government and also from the Association of Spanish and Catalan Architects. In 2021 and 22, he received the Russell Sage Research Project Grant Award, and he was also the recipient of a Columbia Fulbright Chair for Urban Resilience in 2019. He's currently a member of Architects Sans Frontières International and a consultant for the Urban Ecology Department of the Barcelona City government for the project in Vallcarca neighborhood, and also in Tres Turons, in the Park of Tres Turons since 2007. Maria Buhigas, on the other side, she's also an architect and urban planner, founder of Urban Facts, an interdisciplinary platform that develops projects focused on the development of spatial strategies and urban planning with focus on economic and social problems related to cities and metropolitan areas. She has worked many years from 1999 to 2013 in Barcelona Regional, where she was director of urban strategy. And she has participated in numerous international forums and worked with various local and regional governments, as well as collaborating with agencies such as the World Bank and the UN Habitat Agency. She has a degree in architecture from the ETSAP from the UPC as well, and a master in urban planning sciences from Columbia University. She is currently an associate professor at the Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona, Department of Geography. To both of you, I will give the floor, but with a couple of questions. Maybe one first that I will pose to Rafael. As I mentioned before, urban resilience, or basically resilience, is this flip side of futures design, is something that we could place halfway between sustainability and the sciences of complexity. So if we want to go a little bit beyond the buzzword of the idea of resilience, how would you define resilience? What are the academic or theoretical underpinnings?
Thank you, everyone, to invite me to this event. I will share a short presentation. Good. As we were discussing, industries and cities and public partnership are working to create a vision for the future, and Barcelona is working on a sustainable future and establishing metrics for this sustainable future, but also is working on resilience, similar that the case study that Pat Muller showed to us previously. But mainly this kind of resilience is based on engineering resilience. Engineering resilience means that we are focusing on one unique equilibrium, and when all the growth is predictable and the goal is to be efficient and to have a dominant system that has the ability to stay the same in front of changes. And mainly cities are focusing on these technological systems in front of climate change or other kind of shocks, blackouts, etc. And they are promoting resilience, infrastructure, resilience, transportation system, industries, or energy supplies. But cities are complex adaptive systems. That means that not only there is technological system, as I mentioned, but is plenty of other systems, mainly life systems that evolve with change, such as the social components, institution, governments, private companies, and also we have different ecological systems. Then all these biotic systems evolve with change. That means evolutionary transformative resilience is a key element to understand the complexity of all these systems. These systems are eternally changing with crises, disruptions, shocks, and all of these systems has a pattern of 4 phases of growth, similar to all technological systems, but after a change as an evolutionary system, they have a backlog system that is the creative destruction and reorganization phase. That means human potential and urban agency is one of the most important agents to promote radical innovation. That means when all the big institutions, large institutions, try to increment innovation through efficiency, to dominate the system, and they go to a rigidity trap. The important now with like this pandemic, when we are in a crisis, and we are in a phase of creative destruction, is to use radical innovation from community-based organization, small entrepreneurship that are more prepared and are quicker in front of changes. And they are better prepared to build resilience and to transform the system, not to maintain only incremental innovation. We were working in different case studies, analyzing the city of Barcelona, and we could see that in different periods, Barcelona has a transformation through political shocks, disruption, and economic crisis. And we have seen that in the 70s and also in the last financial crisis, mainly all small entrepreneurship and community-based organizations are promoting transformational change and bottom-up innovation from diverse and collaborative social agents. And the innovation from the small scale came to the top and large scale that have more problem to change and to evaluate in front of change. All of this research was implemented to analyze different areas and different communities in Europe and the US. And we have seen that most important is that the resilience theory approach change is normal. And we have different stabilities, not only one equilibrium that has all technological systems. And sustainability science is the envision to the future, to mix and to complement all of these two concepts. It's important to design strategies and implement resilient thinking approach to communities. And the main issues are understand multi-scale and multi-system complexity as a prerequisite for sustainable design, apply resilient thinking to be prepared in front of changes, and scale up radical innovation from small social networks by transdisciplinary and collaborative multi-governance processes. A group of researchers from different universities, we have published different papers related to how small communities and private public partnership in a small scale are promoting scale-up innovation to big institutions. And we are implementing this resilient thinking approach to understand the complexity of innovation and how to promote this bottom-up innovation to the large scales. Thank you.
Okay, Rafael, thank you. I want to also have Maria say something just to begin the conversation. And Maria, you as a consultant or as an advisor to national and local governments and authorities, what would you think at the level of policy and from your very personal and very privileged point of view, what do you think, how are our cities, not only Western cities, but how do you think in terms of what Rafael was thinking, how do you think our cities are prepared? Are they as resilient as we think? How can we prepare them better?
Well, good evening, and thank you also for inviting me and having me in this conversation today. Well, let me put it that way. Cities are the result of decision taken by governments, and also, of course, is a collective construction. So what means that, for example, what Rafael was previously explaining regarding these bottom-up organizations that change and transform over time, and they adapt. All these things are part of the city. But I guess that your question goes more into the detail as, let's say, are the cities prepared in terms of how are our governments or those who govern our cities, are they prepared, or are they preparing towards resilience, or are they considering that? Well, from my experience, there are a couple of things that I want to share today. One is that one of the wrong or the worst thing regarding resilience is something that also Rafael pointed out, that it's this general understanding of resilience from an engineering perspective. So there are many cities, or there are many governments of cities that they are taking decisions regarding, you know, increasing the sewage systems or improving certain infrastructures within the city, that I'm not saying these are not important investments to do, but this is only one side of the picture, while we are missing most of the times in cities that what is not really resilience is, first of all, in the way the organizations are themselves built up. So the architecture of the organizations themselves. We have been talking for many years about, you know, understanding the city as a system, a complex system, that we cannot keep working by silos, but most of the cities around the world keep working by silos. Decisions keep being taken by silos. Also, for example, we look at the end of all the decision process. So we look at the city as a built artifact, for so saying, but we never look at resilience, for example, regarding our legal frameworks, because the city is not built by chance. Is in many, not all the parts of the city around the world are being built by the rule of law, but there are many things that they are designed and defined by the rule of law, and these laws are not prepared, they don't help the cities to become more resilient. This is part of the problem. So that we may try and put a lot of effort, investment, money and resources, but we are not changing this other layer that allows us to do certain things. Rafael was pointing out the value and the capacity of what I call usually the outskirts of the formal organizations of the cities. So you have the governments, and then you have the society, which, of course, he was saying these communities are much better prepared. They can adapt faster. They are much more resilient, and we can learn from them. And I totally agree, because the innovation, it's always at the border of all these regulations and regulatory and formal way of understanding and work with that system, with the cities. But the point is how we can make much more permeable, you will say, how we can facilitate a better exchange between that, when at the same time we are asking to the central, and I'm saying central because I'm doing this with my hands, okay? It's not a hierarchy, okay? It's just that it's at the center. We are asking at the same time for the security of the law, because the law, you know, when it's written in the law, everybody understands that these are the rules. So at the same time we are asking for saving and clear rules, but we need to change that rules following the experience of these other organizations that are at the outskirts, and sometimes they are in the, I wouldn't say illegal, but I would say like paralegal, where the real innovation can be developed to, in a way, push and transform the formal or the legal structure of the cities. This is for me one of the main challenges. How we create this dialogue, but how do we, on the way we take into account that it's not only about changing infrastructure, it's not only about changing the outlook of the city, but changing organizations and also the laws, the regulations, in the way we develop things. Because otherwise, what we try in one side, it takes so much effort, but at the end of the day, there is and sorry for the word, but it's a nonsense or stupid rule that at the end doesn't allow something that it's clear that we need to go in that direction or we need to change. And I will leave my first intervention in this point. Thank you.
Rafael, go ahead if you want to answer or add something.
Good. I will totally support the comments of Maria, and they are totally related with my presentation. And as we have seen at the beginning, we have the strategic plan of Barcelona, Agenda 2030, but this agenda still is an institutional agenda that is not connected with the rules of law and regulation. There are a lot of visions, but they are not included in these regulations. On my side, I am positive because, for example, during this pandemic, these outskirts community-based organization or networks has been implemented a lot of innovation. And in my opinion, as we have seen in the adaptive cycle, is after a crisis when you have this creative destruction process where you are able, and as an institution, you have to promote these emergent actions and try to include and modify the rules of law, this regulation, these established regulations that are very difficult. Then, in my opinion, for example, now it's an interesting momentum to try to improve and include these paralegal, as you said, Maria, actions, this radical innovation. And for this reason, we will be more able to be prepared in front of the next crisis. Now we are working in the pandemic, but probably we will have future crises that we don't know. Then we have to prepare society, but also institutions, because institutions are very, they are going not so fast as small entrepreneurship and communities.
But Rafael, let me add something, or a little bit of controversial, so that this is a conversation. One of the things that concerns me, I recognize this capacity of the bottom up and this, what I was saying, like this paralegal. It's not a nice word, but anyway, organizations to bring and to bring changes, to show, to create evidences. One of my concerns is that there is a step in between, many times missing. There is a synthesis exercise, because you have, from my perspective, all these innovation, all these exercises or these actions taken at that level, they in a way are a cumulus of anecdotes, so that you have different experiences. Then here there is a bridge missing before it becomes a category that we can, put it as a new rule. And I totally agree with you, but it's a synthesis. And this part, my concern, and after working, for example, after being an observer, only in the case of the current crisis, but after being, for example, in Ecuador, working after an earthquake, and seeing and working in, for example, in Asunción with the city regarding specific resilience for the city, how to prepare them. My concern is that there is not so much work done that builds this bridge, this gap in between these kind of thousands of actions, singular actions, and what it really can become a category, as that you need to do this synthesis, because then we can clarify what are the lessons learned, what we really need to change. That's one thing that I miss, and I'm not sure if it has to come from the academia. It's a mix from the academia and the public administrations with the private sector. I'm not sure, but this gap for me is still one of the things that it's missing. Because otherwise, And at the same time, we need to fight against a lot of inertia. When we talk about crisis and resilience, for most of the people in their minds, it's kind of like, okay, there is a crisis, we will adapt and change a little bit, but in fact, we are willing to go back to the starting point again so that things go back as normal, okay? And that's not the whole point. The whole point is that you adapt, and if I was in an point A at the beginning, I will be in an A+. And this plus will be whatsoever. There is a permanent change. And this is, I would say, that change hopefully will be towards sustainability in that case, for example. Then what it's always missing with this change towards this plus is that there are a lot of inertias that we have to fight as well. Look at the pandemic. We were talking about the pandemic, and suddenly density was again an issue. Density is again bad, when we know that low density is unsustainable, is socially unfair, and has many. So we are always getting back and forward, fighting against inertias and myths that over and over have to be reviewed. And I leave it to you here.
Also, my experience, I'm totally agree that to transform these new ideas, this social innovation into a regulatory and a plan, to transform that in a plan and to implement these new ideas, it's very important to this, as you will call, synthesis. And in my experience, I have seen that a lot of times we have, when we are working with a specific neighborhood, I have seen three main characteristics. First of all, you need transformational leadership. That means different kind of people that are able to create a relationship between these little and small innovation and the institution. This transformational leadership could be very important. I have seen that, for example, in the case of Vaikarka, how some technicians has the ability to understand these small communities and to transform these ideas into technical regulation. Secondly, also you need this transformation leadership has been implemented a lot of time. I have seen by women that were, for example, in the case study that I was working in an informal settlement in Colombia, how the academia has implemented courses, continuing education to women for leadership, and these women through third neutral institutions like in this case Architects Without Frontiers, they could implement workshops and mechanism to transform ideas into technical documents and then convince politicians and technicians from the institution. And finally, you need that all these 1,000 initiatives has to be together as a movement and create a transformation of the whole system. Then you need these three kind of situation to promote a transformation of the system.
So from just for a minute, you're both talking a little bit about change and about adaptation. So this continuous process, but the organizations you are talking about, really deal very difficultously with this change. You know, uncertainty is something that they don't like a lot. That's a little bit the problem. Is that, or are we building always political and organizational structures that are made from the top down and they are too rigid?
The theory of resilience says that all large institutions used to go through stability, to dominate the situation, and to go through efficiency. Then this is the remember. You have to maintain the status quo, and but for development you need institutions to develop a plan. Then the complementary of institutions and small are equilibrium that we have to promote and work all together to create a communication with both scales and try to find a common ground.
Well, I will just add to what Rafael was saying. And the first time we met, we already put that on the table, that for all these kind of more rigid organizations, I think that at the end, we need to create evidence that show them the cost of not changing, of not adapting. There is a point, and this is for not only for public organizations, but also for private organizations, that if we need to change our arguments into this language of efficiency, then probably we need to explain that resilience is something that you have to interiorize, because more and more the cost of not doing will be higher, or the cost of not changing and adapting will be higher than the cost to try to keep your business as usual. And we are arriving to a certain point that there is no return for that. And so I understand that it's not easy, not even for individuals, to deal with what you were saying, Pau, with uncertainty, okay? But organizations are used to work with scenarios, so it's not something so weird. The issue is a scenario. What's the goal? Where are you going with that scenario? What's your purpose? So what I'm here trying to say is that the purpose of that scenarios as a way of dealing with uncertainty, now we have to add into one of these scenarios, the scenario of what is the cost of not changing, of not adapting, of not accepting the new situation. And this has to be one of the scenarios, because until now we have the actual scenario, the trend scenario, the changing one. Okay, what on these three, add please, they're not changing. What's the cost of that?
Diego from the audience is asking if we need to look or analyze in detail what has been achieved socially by these smaller initiatives, to provide some clues and overcome this bridge, the bridge between the large organization, the large rigid organization, and the small, let's say, fast changing adaptive system, right?
Sure, we have to measure impact. Sorry, Rafael, we have to measure impact. The problem is that unfortunately, we don't always have the data to analyze the impact. And also, one thing that we have to take into account, at least in what is related to cities, is that these are long-term things, or at least mid-term. changes to really grasp the impact, you need time. And now we are in a hurry, and this is something completely contradictory. So we need things now, while the impact of certain actions in the city will take a while to see, you know, to really grasp the real impact, the results. But I understand your question and your point.
Rafael, you were going to add?
No, I would like to add, related to the question and answer that Diego sent, that it's very important to, we don't have time, but when we will be in a new growth period, we have to take, try to focus on analyze in a small scale what is going on different neighborhoods or communities. When we are in a looking for efficiency, also we have to be aware that we will be we have to be prepared in front of the next crisis. Then we have to focus on this analysis on how these systems are evolving and how to be more prepared in front of this crisis.
And can the small institutions, the small organizations like Vermoller has shown us, can they collaborate, cooperate and communicate among them to build larger structures? Is that something that is useful, or do we always need to build a large structure?
Life system used to build large systems because they would like stability and efficiency. Then it has to be a mix between this growth period and this creative destruction process, and try not only to promote strategic plan at the city level, but also strategic plan and resilience plans into small communities that will be more prepared to that this emergent action will be implemented as a regulatory laws.
And as designers, even social designers, what do we have to do besides changing consumer attitudes, besides consuming in a different way? What do we have to do with these, with our cities, to prepare, let's say, to make them more resilient in the next years? Just to have one action that we would need to do from what you were explaining right now.
If I start answering, I would say that Wagensberg always said that changing the answer is evolution, changing the question is revolution. I think that design has the capacity to change questions, because as designers, we all know that when we are giving a question, the first thing that we do is to question the question that we have been asked. So I would say that for designers, we have the responsibility to help changing questions. Of course, after putting a new question, we will have to work, looking for the answer. But I really think that there is a huge space and a huge responsibility by designers to help change the question, because we need more than evolution. We need revolution at this point.
Rafael.
I think Maria has a very interesting end, and the most important is complementarity, and also to promote diversity, self-organization, learning by doing, and also collective and transdisciplinary thinking to promote resilient thinking.
Thank you, both of you. Thank you, Maria and Rafael. Let me introduce you, Meritxell Font, who will illustrate a little bit our two talks today. I don't know if you have one or two illustrations, but go ahead.
Thank you, everyone, for the invitation. Well, in this case, I wanted to represent a kind of behavior of the collaborations and how the collaborations could be as a life system and create new realities from these collaborations, and also from these new realities and new ways to explore the world and these realities from one each other. And I wanted to express this system like chaotic, but I think like full of possibilities. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Meritxell, thank you very much. Let me just try to close a little bit to tonight's session, but also the 5 or the 4 previous one and the whole cycle of webinars by making a very brief summary. In this webinar, we started in the first 2 sessions discussing about sustainable design and eco-design. Usually, eco-design scholars argue that it addresses ecological and economical aspects, and it minimizes the negative environmental impact of products, and it also offers economic benefits. However, on the 3rd webinar on product and service systems, we also saw that the environmental benefits that eco-design can offer can be easily surpassed or offset by an increase in consumption. That is also a danger that we face. I think it was in 1935 that the word ecosystem was created. Today we have talked a little bit about these systems, these ecosystems, these adaptive systems. The word ecosystem was coined in 1935 by Arthur George Tansley to refer to a set of living beings that reside in just one given space, but also to refer to the very space where they reside and the space where they can develop these relationships and they can flourish. Okay, so the transition towards sustainability includes not only the behavior of producers and the consumers, but the entire ecosystem has to be aligned, like we have seen today in Per Mollers' presentation. Consumers, producers, governments, laws, economic systems, support systems, health, commodities, food, everything has to be, let's say, aligned or in a sort of positive connection to give its benefits. And that's what the second talk today was a little bit talking about. If we don't enable these systems, we are most likely sooner or later going to face the crisis and fail. Okay. So on today's webinar, we have seen a little bit this idea that what distinguishes a sustainable business model from the traditional business model is precisely that not only the aspiration to create a new social and environmental value, but mainly the ability to collaborate with social, governmental, and economic agents in search of solutions at all levels, and to promote these lower level solutions. So to achieve balance between economic development, social and environmental conservation on a global scale, companies and organizations must act to fabricate and to encourage this ecosystem. This implies considering the effects on the plurality of agents that make up this ecology. And second, finding the ways to effectively collaborate with the multiple agents and to build narratives that make this environment resilient. I will just take one final minute to thank everybody who has been assisting to these seminars, in particular to our public online, both the synchronous public that is following us tonight and during the sessions, but also the public that will see us in the in the next day, because these presentations will be hosted on YouTube in a few days. I also want to thank all our moderators and presenters, all our guests to the sessions, and especially we wish to acknowledge and be very, very thankful to the organizers and partners in this event: the EADA Business School, Barcelona Global, McKinsey and Company, and also EINA, and in particular to their wonderful teams and to everybody who has given time and effort to make these sessions possible. And a final and special and warm thanks to Olivia and Pilar, who have organized the whole thing, and without whom this could not have been possible. As I said, these webinars will be hosted on YouTube, so they are available, or they will be available in a few days. We just need to edit them a little bit, but you will be able to reach them easily. And now, just we are going to leave everybody on their own to evaluate and judge the importance and the value of sustainable design in organization. I hope it has been profitable and a useful way of understanding, and we also hope to see you very soon. Good night, everybody, and see you as soon as possible.